Hello, it's John Ebrington here. Thank you for looking in on my channel and at this video. So today I'm talking about another case it's based on a real story about how out of a bad situation can come good. So I had this young man who was made subject to a probation order to me, and quite a nice young man. Seemed quite depressed really, and he had this injury to his hand. It was a bit like he couldn't move one of his fingers or something, you know. I think it was his small finger. I don't know if it caused him pain, I don't remember. But anyway, at the outset of the order, it's quite important from a probationer officer's point of view is to set up a good rapport and a good working relationship with the person that you're supervising, and you try and get them involved in the supervision. So you, at the outset of the order, you plan the work that you're going to do and plan some targets. And one of the techniques I used to use was this, really. I used to draw these 9 squares on a blank piece of paper like that, can you see? And I used to say, well, what are the 9 most important things in your life? Write them down, and from that, we'll get ideas from the supervision plan, and you'll be telling me what's important to you, and from that, we'll work out what sort of things you'd like to work on. So it's a strategy straight away of getting them involved. So it can be difficult to get them to write stuff down, and you end up having to suggest things like who's important to you and what things are really important to you. Do you have any important hobbies or activities that you do? Anyway, what the sort of thing he wrote down was mum, dad, sister, his health issues, getting a job. He was unemployed. And he was fed up with being alone and really wanted to try and find a girlfriend for himself. And getting a car was important for him. I can't remember if we managed to fit if he had any more, or sometimes they just blank. So from that, you kind of say, well, let's focus on one issue at a time. And don't forget that if you reoffend, how will it affect all these things? It will affect them very negatively, won't it? But staying out of trouble will be a positive for all these issues, right? So we looked at getting a job, was one of our first targets. And it's amazing, actually, things like getting a job, forming a settled relationship with a person can really, really help people stay out of trouble. Big motivator. So, thing I did, in those days, there were quite a lot of adverts in the local paper. And I remember he came in and we got the paper out and we kind of went, we were looking at it, and we spent some time looking through all the ads. And I said, what about this job? And he was quite chatty, but whatever I suggested, he would kind of put up a barrier. It's like they put a wall up. People can be so negative that you have this sort of negativity wall fence coming up that you have to get around or get over it. And his negativity thing was his hand problem, his injury to his hand. Oh, I can't do that kind of job because I've got this. Oh, they won't give me a job because I've got this injury. So it was difficult. And in the end, there are other issues as well. Believe me, it's quite shameful to say that, there's been quite a lot of racism around. And I remember one chap, a different bloke, he used to have an African name, and he would fill in 2 application forms, one inferior with less qualifications and things like that, and it would be by Tracy White. And then he put one in his own name, his black African name, and he wouldn't be offered an interview. And that's outrageous racism, isn't it, really? But anyway, this wasn't an issue in this chap's case. I'm going to call him Colin. In Colin's case, the guy with the injury, but he was really worried about his injury, and he saw it as a barrier to him getting work. So that's sad, isn't it? Anyway, we kept looking through, and I said, God, you're so good at chatting. I think you'd be good on the radio or something. You'd be a good DJ. Because he was so chatty. He was quite chatty, despite that kind of negativity wall. Anyway, he saw this job and he said, oh, I think I could do that, and it was a salesman for a warehouse, full training offered. So what we did was I helped him apply, helped him fill in the application form. Then we worked out what sort of things, together we worked out what sort of employee was the warehouse looking for as their salesman. So, and it's quite good for offenders actually to see other people's viewpoints, a potential employer's viewpoint, putting themselves in their shoes, or the victim of their crime's viewpoint. So anyway, we put him in the employer's viewpoint, and we studied together, and we came up with ideas of what sort of questions he might be asked at the interview. Anyway, he did really well. He got the job, and which was absolutely brilliant. He got the job, and he excelled at the job. He did really well. And imagine, I was really proud of him, because at Christmas time, he was named top salesman of the year for that company. He won an award. And he was so proud telling me, and it was a bit like I was one of his relatives, really, and he was telling me all the good news about his work and how wonderful, how it's turning his life around. And the other thing was that through his success, there was a nice young lady at work who was very attracted to him, and they formed a bit of a friendship. So he hit a couple of his targets on that sheet, getting a job and getting himself a little girlfriend, and he sorted himself out a car through the job. So, that was 3 hits on his target, and he was well happy. And it's so rewarding when that happens as a probation officer. Lovely to be able to work in a positive way with people, and to get them going in a positive direction. And I was really, really pleased with him and so proud. Absolutely gobsmacked, actually, that he got Salesman of the Year. Fantastic, isn't it? So out of bad can come good. People can sort themselves out. And, a little reminder, if he'd been sent to prison, would have he been able to achieve those sort of things? No. Chances of him getting a job coming out of prison, less so. Chances of him becoming more violent in prison, yes. It's a very violent environment often in prison, and people come out like, and people in prison learn to hit first and then answer questions later, or they learn to stick up for themselves physically, rather than being bullied. And it's not a nice environment, prison, at all. So the chances are he probably would have reoffended if he'd been to prison. But I'm glad to say he stopped offending as a result of getting his job and his little girlfriend, and it really motivated him. And the last thing was, I said, well, what about your hand? He said, oh, that doesn't matter. And I kind of laughed to myself, because it was such a big problem. It was the big problem before. It was blocking him from achieving anything. And now he had a completely different perspective on his injury. He said, oh, I don't need to worry about my hand. I just get on with things now. Anyway, all the very best. And like I was saying, do look out for my book. It's available on Amazon, and it's called You the Sentencer, What Would You Do? And it's by me, John Ebrington. All the very best now. And it's Amazon UK, by the way. All the very best now, and have a lovely day. Cheers now. Bye-bye.